My name is Shannon Akusia McGee, and I'm currently the Director of Admissions at Academic City University College, which is based in Accra, Ghana. I traveled to Ghana for the first time in the early 2000s, and I, at that time, had gained a Fulbright grant for teachers. So I traveled with the American Institute of Human Resources and Development, which is based in Georgia. And they were recruiting teachers that were interested in diversifying their curriculum, specifically demystifying and dispelling negative myths with regard to Africa. And I traveled with a group of teachers that were responsible for developing curricula for American public schools. After I had a taste of Africa, the continent, I never turned back. So I attended UMass from, I think it was 1993, and I stayed around on campus till about 1998. I think I tried to do political science, but again, I ended up moving to STEPIC, social thought and political economy, and then African American studies. I thought like all Black people pursued a degree in African American studies when they came to UMass. I didn't know like it was this, when I took classes there, the classes were predominantly like white. I just thought that was like a natural progression that all of us must be double majoring, because why wouldn't we? It's Black studies. So I double majored in STEPIC and African American Studies, and I completed both of those programs. I then went on to pursue a master's degree in education. I was at that time a single mom. I had the beauty of attending that school with 5 of my cousins. So we came from a family that like babysitting, and we didn't really have to have those discussions. So I will say, while it was difficult, I had more support than I think I've witnessed any of my friends have at UMass during that time. There was a daycare at UMass, so they were very supportive. So at that time, I was in a community of non-traditional students on campus. And I will say the African American Studies department also became an extended family. So there were times I had to leave my son in professors' offices. It was never that your child couldn't come with you to class if need be. It wasn't easy, but there was a community of people on campus at that time that was about students being successful in their academic journey, and whatever we needed, they bent over backward to provide it. I don't like the term single parenting because my son was raised by a village of people. This included everyone from the janitors at UMass to the parking attendants at UMass, from the daycare staff to my professors to the students. He belonged to a community of people. So I was able to excel. I started out in AFRICOM, which was a registered student organization. And I believe I just started off as a member and then the secretary. From AFRICOM, I moved to BMCP, which I eventually became the general manager. I held that position for about 4 or 5 years. And at that time, the BMCP, the Black Mass Communications Project, was the dominant Alana RSO on campus. When I first came to UMass, it was Third World Affairs Department. Then that transitioned into Alana, which became an umbrella. And then that wasn't an RSO, it became like a department or a student agency. And at that time, those titles were important because we didn't have agencies for the Alana community. You had UPC that would get all this money, that would have a white concert every year, and we would totally be left out. Like, I'm going to be fully transparent with you. And so most of my struggles on campus in student leadership was just really kind of fighting for equity, fighting to be seen. I also was a writer for the Collegian, and I would address Alana issues or Black issues, like the fact that when we come to campus, we shrink So therefore, we don't even acknowledge each other's presence by saying hello to each other. And as a Southerner by birth, like that's a big deal. Just a greeting, walking across campus and greeting and acknowledging each other. So my student leadership was grounded into just unifying the campus, like bringing everybody together. I went on to grad school and we ended up teaching the first course in hip hop at UMass. And it was the third course in hip hop in America. Outside of UMass at the same time, I was a radio presenter in Springfield at WTCC, had a very popular morning show. I was very active in my church, St. John's Congregational Church. I would leave campus to attend Bible study. I guess one of my most memorable leadership positions, I was a SEBS counselor because that was dope. SEBS counselor, we played a pivotal role in the lives of the young freshmen that would come to campus from the SEBS community. And our goal was to, give them the real deal. This is what life is like on campus, and just really try to set them up for success and knowing that they're not going to end up on this campus being swallowed by these 17,000 people. Because UMass is a big community, right? That they have a family here that if they need something, like, yo, we're here for you. That your success is grounded and connected to our success, and we're all gonna be successful together. The New Africa House was a place that you could come and you could just like be yourself. You could come and seek answers to your questions. Why is the campus doing this? Why did the professor say this in class? I could come and get something to eat on a good day. In the New Africa House, you have like the Afro-Am department was on like the third floor and SEBS was on the second floor. So if you can make it there, you're going to get everything you need. Everything you need. I don't care if it's daycare. I don't care if it's food. I don't care if it's boyfriend, girlfriend advice. I don't care if it's, I think this campus is racist. There's this piece that I'm missing. It is the canon of knowledge of self that I was able to obtain at a PWI, at a predominantly white institution. Because definitely I wanted to go to Howard and I wanted to go to St. Aug in North Carolina, but it didn't turn out that way. But I got something even better that Howard and St. Aug and Shaw and all the other HBCs, they didn't have. I had one of the best departments in the world, not in the United States, in the entire world. I can pick up the phone now and call any one of them. They know my name. They know my son's name. They still give advice as a parent. They still will give you an assignment. When you talk about influences, there are many. Delphine Quarles, I must have been a very difficult stepchild to her. But she was in the Student Activity Center. She doesn't get her credit, but she was like our mother too. She often had to teach us the politics. When I was leaving university and I applied for my first job, I didn't know how to negotiate salary. So I went to Delphine. I was like, who's going to help me with this? I said, Delphine. She said, yes, come on in, sit down. I said, I have a question. I said, what do you do when they ask you what's your preferred salary? She said, great question. And we went into role play. And this woman helped me begin to, she was teaching me life skills that I needed beyond campus. When I wanted to talk about racism, I had a nice community of safe white people that I can go and say, this shit is fucked up, And that was my STEPIC family, That was white people that would keep it real. It was just almost like a Black cultural mecca in Western Mass was right there amongst us. The MCP had a structure where we had 5 college representation amongst not our e-board, but we created like a like a management board. And we had also 5 college representation. So it was about bringing everybody together. You can't just go to school and get and read a book. This is about life. This is about how does that academic experience improve your life? And if it's not going to improve your life, then what is education for? One thing that BMCP was known for is we had a clothing line. Everybody wanted BMCP apparel. People started collecting them. And one thing I moved away from is allowing outside people to develop the artwork. So we had, I would say he was like our resident artist, Kamali. He was a student. He's also a graduate at UMass. We began to commission him to do the artwork for our t-shirts. We began to look in-house for all of our talented students to tap into their geniuses in order to just grow our community. The students would get together and be like, what's our theme this year, you know? I remember when Montel Jordan came out with This Is How We Do It, that was our theme. This is how we do it. You know, that student leadership transcended to us having direct chats with the chancellor at that time, the pro vice chancellor. Like when they had a meeting, they knew to include us so that we could have voice. You know, at that time, we demanded that they put an elevator in the New Africa House. We had a student with us that was in a wheelchair, you know, that he was a part of BMCP. So that elevator and our push for it, every time it was an issue, we would push for the elevator. And, you know, a couple of years I went back to UMass to finally see it there. And I was very excited about it because I remember that was the only building that you had to climb upstairs. We didn't have any modern anything in the New Africa House. Almost like when decisions were being made, the New Africa House wasn't included, which was for us, our home. We fought to be included in the discussion. You know, we fought to have a seat at the table. One of the dark, ugly secrets or moments about being students at UMass is we were heavily profiled by the campus police, by Amherst Town Police. So we had a different kind of experience there. People always talk to me about, you know, being a part of the alumni, but the alumni is not really ready to address that. There are 2 kinds of experiences you have. All the things that I'm discussing are offline. These are not things that were funded. The Alana community, I'm sure it'll be like a small paragraph somewhere. People are just not ready to do that. And I'm sure to some extent, you still face it. I have never been in jail in my life before I came to UMass. I went to jail at UMass over an issue with my car. It must have been registration or something. But I was made a criminal at UMass. When I went to apply to become a diplomat, these are things I have to put on my record. And it's painful. But I know in my friend circle, we all encountered the police. We knew their names. And I was profiled and stalked by a police officer. And I think at that time, we also pressed to diversify the campus police. And I'm putting these things on record, you know, because I want the Black presence at UMass is about the fact that every day we came on campus, we were also profiled. You drive on campus, you have anxiety about being pulled over. Like, oh my goodness, can I just make it to class today? One of probably our proudest achievements was having a Black homecoming, and the white people and the alum could not understand why we needed to have Black homecoming. It was a beautiful time, but it was real, you know? And what we learn how to do is navigate the world and learn how to fight for inclusion, fight to be seen, fight to have voice. You spent your time saying, hey, I'm over here. We achieved and accomplished a lot in a short period of time, but it was basically because we had strong unity. We had internal conflict, but strong unity when it came to achieving certain goals. I came to UMass as a non-traditional transfer student from a community college. I was a veteran. I had been exposed to the world. I had lived in Germany for 2 years, traveled during my military career. And I felt like young people that came to that university, they almost didn't have a chance, students of color. The goal was to fight to not get swallowed up. You shouldn't have to survive college. Why do we have to survive college? Are we not a part of the American dream? I mean, we did, after all, build the country for free. you know. So while we had a strong Black presence as best we could, given the realities during that time, and we were able to create beautiful memories, no college student should have to go to a university and be fighting for the right to exist. Your only goal should be to go and engage your content and have a beautiful student life experience. So what I try to do in my day-to-day as a recruiter is to make sure that students have an education that will prepare them for the world, but one that they also can learn to have voice without fighting for it.